Thanks for doing this, Rose.
Thank you for doing this, Ronan.
And thank you, everybody, for coming.
Yes. Hello. Good evening. Thank you for waiting. We're so worth it.
You have had quite a year and quite a life, Rose McGowan. It's an understatement.
And a two, Brutus.
There are some commonalities. One thing I think we both have in common is we don't do small talk. There's a certain level of intensity you might have noticed from our respective bodies of work. How are you, Rose? And you know me well enough to know that I don't mean that casually.
Correct.
I mean on a deep level. How are you?
I like and thank you for asking that. I do get a lot of, how are you feeling? And I think they're really, English is my third language.
Italian and then?
Cults and Italian. And how I grew up was, they started training people for the end of days at 18 months. So there wasn't a lot of time to develop. I feel in color, and I get, or prickles in my, someone said, how are you feeling? I said, my arms are on fire and they're prickling. I don't know what that means exactly, but it's because I don't think I had the normal, I don't know if people have the grace to learn what emotions are or feelings, or this thing hurt me and this is what happened because of it. But I don't really have that language. So, like most things, you liken it to the movies. It's like, right now, it's a cross between 2001: A Space Odyssey. That was when Ronan and, his beauty and his mind and his tenacity and his grit helped destroy very much, And what that was like 2001: A Space Odyssey, when they get to the Jupiter section, or Keir Dullea, and all of a sudden there's all these graphics, and nobody's been there. Just nobody's been there. But then we cut to Superman 2. From, I think, the 80s, or late 80s. And there's these three bad characters who, of course, dress in all black, because that's how it goes. And they land with a thump on the earth. And that's what I feel like with the book coming out. It's like I came through the atmosphere, and now I'm just like...
And now you're Terrence Stamp in 80s leather.
No, I'm the woman. I don't know her name, but she's actually my fashion icon.
It's a good look.
From when I was 12.
But it hasn't all been easy since this broke, either. I remember were telling me over the holidays, you were texting me saying, I walked out of a family dinner and I'm upset and I'm dragging my luggage behind me through the street. Tell me about adjusting to this new reality.
Yeah, Christmas night, or dinner-ish, found me dragging my sad, lonely suitcase down a sad, lonely street in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I was like, all right, this is the glamour. And
because your family didn't want to address this, right?
No, nobody addressed it. I was there for 2 days, and it really did feel, I don't know what it's like to come home from a war, on paper, but I can tell you it's a war. And nobody addressed it. It was just, I was there for 2 days, and nobody said, how are you? Are you okay? This must be hard. Wow, are you tired? Because it is, but I cry a couple of times a day, because I have to, because there's not a lot of time to process, and writing this book, I went through, as you know, writing a book, if you want to keep sanity, I can't recommend ever writing a book. I now understand all these things about writers that I didn't previously quite get. I also now understand why people don't launch 3 massive enterprises on one day with a giant social enterprise going on behind.
Yes, admittedly, most writers don't have, Mossad agents chasing them, former ones anyway, trying to get portions of your manuscript.
Successfully.
Well, it certainly appears that at the very least, we were able to report in the New Yorker that transcripts describing the manuscript in detail were delivered back to your alleged attacker. What was it like, after so many years of being disbelieved, waking up, seeing things like that in print, having the conversation change in a way where people actually accepted what you had been saying for so long?
Well, I think a lot still fight it, Ronan, you see, because people don't like, I don't understand this. If someone's really just trying to stop either a pedophile or a rapist, that seems like, you know, you wouldn't be able to assort the world's most talented lawyers like David Boyce and Charles Harder. You know, you would think they'd want to steer clear of something as ugly as that, but no. In fact, they lean in. And in fact, people go up against me. You know, Variety, Peter Bart was paid off for years. I mean, we all know these things, right? Allegedly, let me just say that, right? We have to keep saying that. He was consensually paid off.
There's been a lot of denials of non-consensual behavior.
So, I can't tell you what that feels like. It feels violent. It feels degrading.
The denials feel violent to you.
I don't know what it's like to get to face down my attacker in court, but I do know that they lie. They lie. And one thing, my overwhelming thing, you know, my whole life really, just being born into a situation where people are constantly saying, this isn't what you're saying. And then a life of that, which we women really get in general, right? And people of color, and it's so much. And men, you know, they get defined by what they're supposed to be rather than to get to be what they are. It's very similar, you know, we get defined by what we're supposed to be and not what we are. And I just think, but I see who you're supposed to be. I'd rather talk to that person. And people, for some reason, it mystifies me that if someone's only sole motivation is to make the world better, you know, I have like people coming at me, you're profiting off the Me Too movement. First of all,
you feel you are telling a story.
I worked at this for 3 years. I worked for 20 years to bring this man down.
And I will say,
strategically,
Rose was telling this story to reporters much earlier than this was public. So that is certainly the case, and a lot of this flows from those conversations. There were a lot of brave people who came forward, but you did early on do work that was instrumental in setting this in motion. So, you know, for those who have come forward, anyone in the audience who this resonated with and who has stepped out of the shadows with a story about sexual harassment or assault, you know, she did that in a climate where it was very, very difficult, as any of you who have those experiences understand, to do that. You did that alone, as far as I could tell.
Yes. I decided to embark on a social reengineering project because why not? I was bored. I thought people were quite stupid and maybe they could be better. So I embarked on Rose Army. I trademarked Rose Army 3 years ago. And I started shooting for the documentary that I knew was going to be on E! Now, I also got the Kardashian producers. Why? Because of Marshall McLuhan. I really believe the medium is the message. And I really believe in being egalitarian and smashing the 99 and the 1%. So I knew if I did anything, if I talked about Brave or any of this on HBO or Netflix for people with extra money, it's not talking to, like E! Actually has the farthest reach. I knew my book was going to come out. I knew my voice was going to be louder.
Yeah.
These women, Asia Argento, Annabella Sciorra, there's all these women, over 100 something now by our count. There's many, many more. I didn't want to stomp on their voice. They haven't been heard. I would, you know, it's like...
You did an extraordinary thing in lying in wait in that way and deciding exactly when and how.
Me, it's my story. I got everything stolen. I wanted to have something that was this, but really I wanted them to be, I would overshadow them. It would be like, honestly, if Jennifer Lawrence walked across the stage right now, everyone would start looking at that and photographing that. I understand what they do. Like, you know, when you go down a red carpet, you can't go down the same time as someone else because they're more famous than you, they'll get more coverage.
So even when we look at that initial body of reporting, I really do feel you have to owe Rose a significant debt of gratitude and credit for creating that story, because many of the women you just mentioned went on the record at a time when you were, for all those months of the NBC reporting, on the record, and they knew that someone had come first. And then many of them were talking to you in the months after.
That's why I let it go for so long.
Yeah.
We're just talking about this now for the first time, working it out together. That was, it was kind of like doing weird undercover work or something.
What do you mean by that? With reporters who were doing undercover work?
It's not the right word. Playing two news organizations that are very powerful off each other's, dicey business at best. And while writing a book that it was intense. It's intense but uplifting and beautiful and about bravery. And what I knew to do, I knew when I was about a year out from the book, most likely being finished, I knew that I had to puncture, I had to get people to look askance the propaganda machine at what fills their brain. And there's so many, we know, right? We know what we're seeing. But a lot of times we're just like chilled out. But the thing is, I know the people behind those messages that you get, as do you, a lot of them. Someone asked me, if you were in Oz, who would you be?
Who would you be, Rose?
The curtain. I would be the curtain.
You're not the man behind the curtain. You are the curtain.
I am the curtain. The curtain's very pretty. The curtain gets used, kicked aside. Nobody really notices the curtain. They're appreciative that it's there, but they just pull it aside when it's done. The fabric gets frayed, ripped, but it absorbs everything from both sides. From this side, presentationally, it looks so great to you, right? This is the curtain that you see. From the back side, you see everything too, but nobody notices the curtain. The curtain's taking notes.
Did you have, talking about that journey of playing, as you say, making news organizations your pawn to get this story out in the right way?
Well, because so many people would try to break it. David Carr of the New York Times,
yes.
Most excellent.
And I did an article about the intimidation a lot of those reporters faced.
Yeah. Well, I also wouldn't talk to him. I said, it's not time. Public, it wasn't just, I talk to anybody though. That's the thing. People would come and sit next to me at a dinner and I'd be like, oh, good. And I would throw it out there because I knew someday if I threw stones, somebody was gonna help somebody, and that somebody was you.
Thank you, Rose. Well, applaud for the women who came forward, because the way it ended up playing was, look, there was a before and after in each of these stories, and it is about people going on the record, which can be, as you know, the most difficult decision of a lifetime. It's a decision for many women to be defined by the thing they least want to be defined by.
It's in your obituary for all time.
Right, so you can imagine staring that down, and in the case of a powerful alleged attacker like this, you are dealing with the potential for massive repercussions for your life. The kind of infiltration into your life that you saw.
But you see, I'd already had that with him, because I never signed an NDA, but I was told that I had.
And woman after woman talked about not just the legal ramifications, even for people like Rose who hadn't signed an NDA, the career ramifications, the fears.
Yeah, but it was, that's one of the
And
things.
we now have learned that that's true, that there were women that were blacklisted. Filmmakers have described that.
Well, yes. My thing is, I don't really care if people verify my story. It's true, I know it. I lived it, I was there. When people ask, what's it like to be believed? I'm like, I don't really care. Don't believe me, you don't have to, but you do have to think.
But
Just
from my standpoint, of course.
From your standpoint, I don't know. I had to live. I had to survive in a way that had to protect me. I lived between worlds. I existed not in yours and not in theirs, and not in America and not in Europe and not anywhere. There was no soft spot. There's no, Christmas, I was like, there's no soft place to land. Someday. But I do have a place that I created in my mind, Planet 9. And I wrote about this place, Planet 9, when I was 11 years old. And I used to, when I came to American schools, I was very stressed, and it was pretty traumatic. And so I would imagine this orb coming out of the ceiling at school, and it would protect me, and it would encircle me. And lo and behold, they discovered Planet 9. Poor Pluto. And Rest in peace. But it's, for me, it's not that I'm against, it's just that I had to construct a life where people believing or not believing me didn't matter. Because otherwise I would have lost my mind. And that was the one thing I had and that I prize above all else.
And you certainly, I spent a year listening to a lot of powerful men call these women who were relating the worst experiences of a lifetime crazy. Call them unstable, call them unreliable narrators, and a lot worse things that I won't repeat on this stage. That was something that was lobbed at your story countless times. I sat in rooms and defended the fact that that on-the-record testimony from you mattered. And what you...
To people like NBC.
To numerous people. And what I will say is in an environment like that where people are so reluctant to believe, and particularly to believe women, you were smart in that at least for those 6 months where we had you on the record, it was enough time that multiple women were always on the record in that story. And unfortunately, while we now live in an environment where a heavily corroborated story from a single individual woman can run, if it has the right news value. That's always a tough decision, but it can. Back then, we needed that. We needed multiple women, and we always met that threshold. And that is why the story survived through those months. It's why it ended up at the New Yorker eventually. And the trials and travails of...
And writing this through that, writing this book, and producing and doing an album that's the other side of the book, and then filming for a documentary that nobody knew. When I told the head of E, and I said, it was always going to be you, he was like...
You were playing three-dimensional chess, and you had all these projects. But I guess, because you raised it, that complicated saga of you being on the record that long, and then falling out of the story, then coming back into the story, it raises an interesting, larger thematic question for me, which is, there are people who react to the periods of silence, the years and years of silence before, the strategic periods of bowing out of stories and coming back in, and have said publicly, well, why not earlier? Why didn't you share the story? Do you have feelings of guilt about not sharing the story earlier?
Because
there were other
people
women
that say that, I think, are also stupid. And I'm bored of that.
Say more.
I don't really care anymore. I mean, the thing is...
Let me reframe their question in a better light.
Please.
This is the kernel of a fair point, I think, is in that.
Okay.
In the periods of silence, there were other women who claimed that they were attacked. Do you ever feel, at any time on any day, conflicted about the fact that you hadn't spoken? Because I've talked to women who said, I wish I was more.
It was the first day that I did, and the head manager at my agency said, God damn it, I just had an expose about him killed at the LA Times. He owes it to me not to do this. This is 1997. I tried. Who was going to believe me, Ronan? Who? This society? You? No. Come on. The only perfect rape victim is a dead rape victim, and that is a fact, and we all know it. Oh, we're so sad for her, she's dead, oh. But other than that, and I love it when, you took a payout. I didn't take a payout, I demanded it. It was my only way of saying, F you, I don't want this, I don't like this, and I tried to buy a billboard. Gannett Outdoors did not go for Harvey Weinstein as a rapist on Sunset Boulevard. I'm truly shocked.
People are tremendously quick to judge, and I think
But I don't come from their world, so I don't care.
There's a lack of understanding about the complexities of coming forward with this issue. Now, but also especially and even more so 20 years ago.
The lack of nuance in people's minds is staggering. And that's not my fault.
Seems like an uncontroversial statement.
It's not my fault. It's like, don't make your khaki pleated pants brain my problem. So I get a lot of questions that are exactly the same. And they're like, but people are saying this. I'm like, people also voted for Trump, not my issue. I get and I'm like, yes, but it's a collective. And what I'm trying to hit is a structure. I'm hitting it from above because I don't know. I didn't integrate with you all. I didn't sit in an office. I don't know for a little bit when I lied when I was 15 and worked as a PR agent for Bristol Myers Squibb during a breast implant scandal. I lied and said I was a graduate of USC Corporate School of Communications. And I had to take the bus there because I wasn't old enough to get a driver's license. And I would consult magazines as to what I should wear, what ladies wore. Pantyhose, that's what they wore.
You do a lot of talking about the societal pressures about what to wear and how to have your hair in this book, Brave.
Yes, because we all know it. And something I really noticed, it was a side effect and not something I didn't do. If I do this, this will happen. It was, in one way, it was like, if I do this, I'm definitely cutting literally the cord to that world. Where I was told, you know, when I first started, that I say it in the book, that, am I allowed to curse here?
Curse away.
Well, you know, as is my wont. And it was like, by a female agent, because female misogyny is so deep. Oh my God, do a lot of them operate against their best interests. It's so weird. But this woman agent said to me, and it was like me, you know, I had been on my own since really 13, and I kind of am like Nell in a way, but I kind of speak my own language. You know, the woman that was in the woods. Mine was just with dresses and high heels, and that's what you saw. I lived a really big life off the screen, but I had to live it privately and in hiding, but it affected everything. And the thing is that, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a sec because I got sad.
That's allowed.
Thank you.
There is a lot in this book. And one of the things that struck me most. Oh, do you want to close up the point on the hair?
I'll close the point on hair.
She's very eloquent about the hair in the book.
I think I'm eloquent quite a lot.
You are eloquent in the book a lot.
It was, you have to have long hair, so the men in Hollywood who want to fuck you, if they don't want to fuck you, they're not going to hire you. And then I was like, oh, that was like me opening the magazine saying, professional ladies wear nylons. Oh, like, how was I didn't know. I grew up, you know, out of time in a way. My father, our pictures are from a Brownie camera. That's from the 50s.
And you were also in the countryside in Italy in a cult.
Behind walls, really.
And that is the genesis of something that runs all the way through your life story. And we've been talking about this for a year now. In each of our conversations, it comes up. You have been the subject of abuse after abuse, very often from men, from a very early age. You tell the story in the book.
And a lot of women. They don't get a pass.
Well, I want to get to that too, but this theme of men, and you openly embrace the idea that this is a chain of events that are connected in your life. Going back to, you talk about it being 4 and a member of the cult coming up to you and assaulting you. Talk about that.
I drew it afterwards, actually. I drew, I was walking down a hallway, and I always remember, you know, some people, I say have 2 kinds of memory, right, that excel at. You either excel at short or long term. I excel more at long term. So I'll remember this evening in 5 years. It's really nice to see you. That story in there started a quest for, I was walking down this hallway, and so to give a little background, there was a duke, the Duke of Zuagli, and he was in the cult, the Children of God. And his sister, Ariana, Rosa Ariana, whom I am named for, because it's Italy, she didn't get control of the house, the brother did. So we're in this palazzo, this Italian, this grand, you know, with a lot of incredibly beautiful in Tuscany, right? Sounds lovely. But it was a place, it was multinational, multicultural, not that I knew what that meant, but there was always danger. And every room I looked in, I would try to find what could protect me and what I could kill somebody with if I needed to. And so when I was walking down that hall, am I echoing? Do you guys hear that?
You can understand her, right?
But am I echoing a little? Oh, I hear. I didn't think so.
It's a little echoey.
Yeah, there's something odd. I think it's because I'm wearing 2 microphones.
Authority.
No, I think it's because I'm wearing 2 microphones. But I don't know which one it is. Hold, please. So I was walking down a hallway, this stone hallway, and I remember, because I always loved light, and there were these shafts, and I was just staring, watching. I always loved watching dust dance. And this door opens, and the man says, after he picks me up, you know, like most things, it happens quick and slow. And he took a razor blade and cut a wart that I had on my thumb off, and then just set me back down, shut the door, and I was there with blood coursing down. And it.
You're 4 at the time.
Yes. But I remember it, and I drew it. I remember I learned how to read when I was 2. Read. Like, they were, strangely enough, quite. Quite. Is that better?
I think it is.
I think it is better. Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Let's go with that.
Sorry. So, you know, it was. I don't.
But the reason I ask about that incident, and it struck me, I mean, first of all, knowing you in the present day, you talked about entering rooms and searching for weapons, and that being an instinct that you have.
I still do.
You still do.
Why wouldn't I?
And I know, you know, even when you talk about the saga of how you engineered your relationships with reporters, you then, months later, after, you know, there were these months on the record, there was this period where you really went to 11 and said, you know, I'll send lawyers after you, and then you were back in. No, well, what was striking to me is when you went back on the record, you came to me and said, I'm sorry, I didn't know who to trust. I didn't know what was real. And I was immensely moved by that, because even though it had made my life hell for a little while, nothing on the order of the hell you were going through, of course, it I thought was revealing about who you are, that there is some desire to open up and connect, but also you have this long, long history of being wronged.
Yeah.
How do you contend with that?
I don't know. I just do.
Yeah. Well, you've used it in the last year and more than that to help others.
I contend with it to push me through the atmosphere. I contend with it because it's wrong, and it's wrong to so many of us. I contend with it because I hear women's voices everywhere I go. I contend with it because I've always heard the underdog. I believe you have too. I hear their voices, and I worked so hard to get to a place, you guys, where I could speak. I have a lot of people will say, you're so lucky you have a platform. But I always knew this was going to be my life, you see. I knew this was going to happen. I knew the timeline. The part that scares me is that there's always a chunk that I didn't see. I saw everything. I knew at 19 I was going to collapse and then have to rebuild and reformulate. I knew the trajectory of, like, this is the time this is going to happen. This is the time this is the time you're going to get raped.
You told me that even long before the Harvey Weinstein incident that you recounted to me, there was a statutory rape by a prominent man in Hollywood.
Yes, I didn't process that actually until, I'll get to him.
Is that a story you're ready to tell?
Right now? Or in general? In general, sure. Right now at this moment, I've had a big day. I've only had a banana. I've been busy. I'm sorry. It would make this night very spectacular, wouldn't it? But let me tell you, he worked for my rapist and won Oscars. And let me tell you, this man picked me up when I was 15 years old. And I looked like, I don't know how those people at Bristol Myers Squibb didn't know I was 15. And I lied and said I was a junior account executive. But I always managed to finagle my way things. And, so this man, he's very famous in
and
the
you
NPR
did
world.
Tell me the name of this person, which
Yes,
obviously I would not say
We'll
without
get
your being ready for that.
It's a timing thing, you know how it goes. Cease and desist.
Rose speaks when she's ready.
I do.
And that's the important thing.
For all of us, and I think, when he took me home after he met me, and he showed me a soft porn movie he'd made for Showtime, under a different name, of course. That's when I learned what Nam Myoho Renge Kyo was, because it was involved with his soft porn. And then he had sex with me. And then he left me next to Cafe Tropical in Silver Lake, standing on a street corner.
You're 15.
Mm-hmm. But I'd always found him attractive. Well, not always that day. In my mind, playing it back, I'd always felt like I had been attracted to him. So I'd always filed it away under a sexual experience, even though I had not, other than somebody else at a clothing store, had, I thought my period was gonna last an hour when I got my period. And I was reading Poe at 4. It was a very, I don't know what normal trajectory is. I don't know if you do either.
I do not.
But it is substantially strange to.
Let's be clear about that. Do not.
Yeah, I swear yeah.
But you just said something I think important there, which is, look, you're describing a powerful guy in Hollywood with a 15-year-old girl. That's quite a stark moral question. But you did say, this was something I reassessed years later, that at the time I didn't think of it as an assault. Not in this case, where it's a bright line.
2 weeks after your story came out is when I had processed it, but I didn't really process it in terms of, I didn't put it on me. I removed myself from the situation. I was like, that creep did this to a 15-year-old. That's kind of, I spoke a bit with you. But it was not till about 2 weeks after your story broke, or our story, our world story, that I was in bed, and all the stuff, there's so much, the stress level's been intense, and I started crying. I thought, oh my God, I think that's molestation. Is it? Or sexual, I don't know what to put in, because you know what, men get
You were
to name
an
the words.
underage person at the time.
Yeah.
In that case, it is a very bright line situation where a crime was committed. In other cases, that kind of reassessment years later of incidents that maybe both parties found acceptable at the time is happening around the country. I think women have woken up with that same moment, and many men too.
Yes, you can go back, you trace the breadcrumbs of your life, and you're like,
Now that is what we just described, a phenomenon that is going to be very frightening and troubling to many people. Should people be worried about that kind of reassessment? Is there the pitfall of innocent situations being turned into something else in retrospect?
I've been pulled over for speeding a couple times. But I'll tell you what, I've sped a lot more than I've been pulled over.
So you think
no, I do not.
That the benefits of what's happening right now outweigh the costs?
That's
that these 2%, are fringe cases?
It's 2%. It's 2% of all reported cases are false. 2%. Mm-hmm.
We have audience questions.
Hello. 2%, and that's very few of the rape cases that even get brought, and it's such a minute, infinitesimally small amount, because often you don't know even what happened to you, obviously.
And when you see, look, it was very clear, because you were on the record from square one saying this was a rape. And you actually we had a conversation where I said, look, I think we're going to be able to use the term misconduct, but I'm getting a lot of pushback from a lot of lawyers. And you said, show the lawyers this footage. This is a rape.
I spoke into the camera.
Yes. This is a rape, use the word. And you were emotional, and I wish I could have gotten more people to watch that footage. But
they wouldn't watch it, the lawyers at NBC.
Transcripts were reviewed, and indeed it was hard to use the term rape. But there are other stories.
You know why that makes me mad? Not just that they didn't watch it, the etymology of the word rape. The origin of sexual. Who gets to name what happens to my body? Men. Who gets to vote on how much time is punishable for what's happened to my body? Men. Who gets to invent all the words that go along with this that are not nuanced? And misconduct. Come on. That sounds like a sports conduct unbecoming or something. It's so trivial, right?
Well, I will say that once this story was at the New Yorker, we had a conversation about this. There's a wonderful woman editor who worked on all of the Weinstein pieces, but led that.
What was her name?
Deirdre Foley Mendelson.
I would love to meet Deirdre Foley Mendelson someday.
You should. Anyone should be lucky enough to meet Deirdre Foley Mendelson, and what a name.
Deirdre Foley Henderson. I'm staying. That's my next hotel name, by the way. Sorry, Deirdre.
Poor Deirdre. There's going to be some very grave confusions that happen, I'm sure, as a result of this. But, we all depend on good editors. But more than that, in this particular story, we had a conversation, and she was one of the people in the room who advocated for you have to use the term rape when it is, in fact, a rape, and that it is deceptive and disingenuous with your readers to use a term like misconduct if, in fact, this is, by any legal definition, a rape. And I hope that one of the things to come of this moment and this conversation and your candor about what you went through is people understanding that that is a term that's important to use and that the definition of it is broader than maybe some people traditionally understood.
Hence the nuance. I mean, I think if people can get to the fact that, we now get believed, there's believe me, a lot of pushback on that still. But the thing is rape is an ugly word, isn't it? Isn't it ugly? It's hard. It's hard.
But that's why it's important to use when it's accurate.
Exactly. And it's important to be like, oh, you know what? We actually have gangrene on our legs right now. Oh, instead of pulling our pants legs down and going like this, let's pull it up. Yeah, gangrene's really ugly, actually, I'm pretty sure. And it might rot, and it might smell a little bit. But you know what? If I take the right antibiotic, excise the wound, heal it, treat it, look at it, work it out, then I can pull my pants legs down and be proud and walk strong and tall. So that's what I did, and that's what we can all do, and that's what's magical about the human spirit. But we have to make allowance for the fact that there are gray areas, and the fact that, but what's great, Ronan, I have the man who mixed my album, Michael Patterson, he sat down with me apropos of nothing. He just said, my friends and I were talking, 4 men and I, last night, and we were all very honest about when we had pushed it to. We started talking about it, and we're like, yeah, I kind of bullied my way into this girl's pants. Or because that's what it is. What's the song, Baby It's Cold Outside? Break that down.
It's a gross song.
Baby, it's rape outside.
But that's actually why I mentioned this distinction. The Weinstein story was about allegations of multiple rape. That first New Yorker story was about that. There have been other stories since that have been about the gray areas that you describe. I mean, when you read, for instance, that story about Aziz Ansari, how do you feel about that?
This one I'm going to take a pass on because actually
I respect that.
I somehow missed it. I was in Germany, and not that they don't have papers over there, but they are in German, and I wasn't going online. And
there was a major controversy, I'm sure you saw, about a story about what appeared to be, for some people, an instance of forced sexual activity, and in the eyes of many other who read that story, it was an uncomfortable date, and that the audience was split on that, and there was a lot of criticism.
It's easier to say, it's easier to, the thing is, you guys see these people on your TV, you become friends with them, you like them, they're affable. They couldn't do this, right? Bill Cosby, he's America's dad. No, he's not, he's America's #1 rapist. Get it right. And the thing is, you have to be willing to make your heroes better. I'm not saying the heroes should necessarily fall, but they have to be better.
The role of hero worship in this entire phenomenon and this conversation is
ridiculous.
Fascinating. Because if you look at the reaction to those Cosby stories, many of those women were viciously smeared.
Ugh.
And it was not that many years ago, but I remember reporting on this, and the tenor was much more, but hey, what about his art? And look at what he contributed to comedy and to race in the conversation.
I bet you've heard those
race.
arguments a lot too, haven't you, in your life?
I may be familiar with some of those arguments.
They're so dull, aren't they?
Look, I would say if there is a credible allegation of sexual assault, the conversation about art can continue, but it is separate, and it should not preclude the discussion of a rape allegation. Yeah. That tends to be my view.
If someone gives a restaurant a bad Yelp review or has a C on its health grade, do you go in there? Even if the food looks pretty. I don't want that food in my mind. I don't want that food in my body. No thanks. You don't get a say. Because for every one of these guys that's fallen, I know so many more. I could have probably destroyed the known universe in that ecosystem, okay? But I don't care because they're all ideas, they're constructs. Each one is literally just a corporation to me.
And you're not concerned, and I'm not just talking about false allegations, which you correctly said are this tiny, minute percentage.
Because, yeah, it's so fun to go through.
Right. I mean, I think one thing that you come out of reporting stories like this with a very clear sense of is there is nothing in it for these women. Rose did not stand to profit off of this. Certainly to the extent that she's now got a book going and everything, it's nothing compared to the hell that was inflicted upon you.
But that's something that drives me insane right there, and I'll stop you at that point. Profiting. You're right. I should never make any money ever again off of my art or my talent. You are completely correct. I was violated. I had my career stolen. I had millions of dollars in awards and who knows what else, not that I want those, taken from me. Smeared viciously worldwide by paid off journalists in your profession. Your esteemed profession. Who were paid to slander and smear me. It affected every area of my life. Every single person I met. My family treated me like I was that person. Men treated me like they owned me. Women hated me. Thanks a lot. But you're right, I shouldn't profit off any work that I do. But all of you can. Go for it. Am I angry? God damn right I am. I'm going to read the last line of this book to you so you guys can actually know what it's about. Because what it is about is not that man or men in general. It's about constructs. Every person I mention in here is an idea that we all kind of know and can relate to. So the bigger part of the book to me, the more important part of the book, is the framework that I put around that, the what if, the connecting certain dots that I don't think most people know. Because you know what, I speak cult. And you guys don't, but a lot of you are in it in ways that you're not aware of, but I see it. And I would like to help you unwire that. Not that you're all like, it's like a Svengali going like, that's not what I mean. It's deeper than that. It's a lot more nuanced, it's subtle. So if the carpet that it makes up your being has these threads in it that need to be pulled out, that didn't get put in there by you, what if you are in fact this organic, beautiful piece of silk wool? What a great carpet. Oh man, there's polyester all over the place. What's this artificial crap doing in here? Pull it out. That's this book.
Read that last quote.
I will. Be better. Think different. I know you can. I know you can change the world, starting with yours. Just by being brave. And I say earlier, brave doesn't mean you're not scared. I was always scared. I'm still scared.
What
but
are
I
you
do
scared
it anyway.
of now, Rose?
Assassination.
You really think that you could be killed? Someone laughed, but I know you're not joking. Because you
Why is
told
that
me you
funny?
thought you were going to be killed. Well, I don't think they're laughing insensitively. I think people
No,
mostly
but
think
even
that's
you
ridiculous.
Yeah, but I don't care what you think.
But I'll tell you, when
I know my life, and I know my reality, and I know that people like me get killed.
And this is not new. When we had our very first interview, you said,
He's been after me
be
for
careful,
a lot longer.
you could get killed, is what you told me.
Yeah, and you could. And I could. There was a plant last night. I had my first book signing, or reading. Something I'd only seen in movies, by the way. And there was definitely a paid plant that got up and started screaming at me and yelling at me.
What makes you think that that was a paid plant?
Because I have people that were watching the exchange and how it handed off, and somebody at the book place.
And you don't think, there are people who will hear that and say, this was an angry member of the public.
I don't care what people say. Please get that straight.
I've learned to believe that with Rose.
I really don't, because I can't, because it would kill me. And I had to fight so hard to stay hopeful. Every person I meet, I hope for the best. I'm not jaded, actually. That's the ultimate joke of it all, right? I'm not. I kept myself so sequestered so I could stay open to wonder and color and light and beauty and magic and art. I did that to protect myself.
And yet, Rose, going back to what we talked about earlier, this long history of abuse after abuse, that does change a person. Asia Argento, an extraordinarily brave woman, who also told one of the most difficult stories I've ever heard in all its complexity, for one of those New Yorker stories, was in your documentary. And she said this. She said, I was open to more hurt. I was prey. I was the perfect prey. I was already hurt. They recognized those that were hurt, and that's how they managed to come in a small crack that they recognize. All of us had some wound that they could recognize. Do you feel in some way that you were predisposed, that predators saw something in you along the way?
There's something people don't talk about in all of this is beauty. It gets forgotten, but we were beautiful. We were like ethereal, extraordinary beauties. And we got hunted. Every room were targets, these creeps, these creepy men everywhere, all over the world. Like, that's the one I'm going for. And if you then couple that with consistent and extreme abuse, and then you couple that with just being a woman and a girl in the world, yeah, you're fucked. Yeah. It's like the ibex that's, straggling from the herd. Because the herd's like, get lost, we don't want you, ibex. And then that lion's like, oh, hey. I mean, it's not that dissimilar. It's a hunt. And the thing is, they've done tests of like, on sociopathy and sociopathy in Hollywood, and it's astronomical. But I would say, why not? Because the flood of beautiful girls and boys going in there year after year, fresh meat, damaged. Because I'll tell you, I was beautiful. And I didn't understand what that was or relate to it, because for most of my childhood, I don't recall mirrors until I did see one, and I was like, what are you? And then all of a sudden I grew breasts, and the world got so loud, like terrifying, everywhere, like, and I still flinch at sound, and light, and, but I was supposed to just smile and be happy that someone was paying me attention. What? Get lost, society. And when I say get lost, I don't mean individually, I mean like the collective guy in the car honking the horn. Because what that does, though, is reduce you. So when I was 12, I started pretending like I was the horses in Central Park. And I put those things, so any place I'd walk into, but you know what that did? That stole a lot of my vision. Because of what somebody else wants, because they've seen Adam Sandler movies where he gets to have a Salma Hayek or a Kate Beckinsale or somebody, because, he's a slob and has no discernible assets.
You've really, you've had it in for Adam Sandler.
No, he's a construct. Who wouldn't? Come on. I don't care if you occasionally do movies where you're a good actor. Piss off. I'm over it. I'm over this type.
Because you told that story about getting sides for a role, and it was like for...
I got a script, and it said the most ridiculous thing. And the thing is I was still making my way out of the cult at this point. And it really was like insistent, like this bell alarm in my brain, wake up. And I was like, what am I waking up from? Because like I say in the book, there were so many levels of wrong in my life. I was doing full drag as a woman, full drag. And that's why I felt so strange, really. I couldn't pinpoint what, I was like, there's something really wrong in my life. And I'm like, it's all of it. But what that was about,
well, the reason that I brought up Asia's quote, which I thought was incredibly insightful and consistent with a lot of what you say in here, is, I have learned in speaking to you and hearing you bravely recount your story, and then woman after woman, there are no perfect victims. And this...
Are there perfect people?
There are no perfect people, but there's also, there is no... oh, she is, straight-laced enough, educated enough, stable-seeming enough in whatever traditional way
I would like to put the men that say all those things and the women that say them on trial.
Well, I've heard those things a lot, and I understand where they come from. I understand that even with good intentions, people trying to insulate stories like this from attack look for those things. But it's very important for reporters to separate out two different things: how someone appears and the credibility of the underlying claims. And it was never a question for me whether Rose's underlying claims checked out, because from square one, the first thing I went was I found the people you said you told right after. I found the paper trail of the documents you had talked about, and that was the relevant thing.
The most amazing investigative reporter ever. Not that, like, this is like what he's done is resurrect journalism, credibility, intensity, integrity, a love of language that I respect the hell out of, and your mind and your ability to connect these dots. And people wrote you off as a lightweight, didn't they? Didn't they? In some ways, yeah?
Absolutely. And people trying to discredit stories like this, still will very readily.
So that feeling there, right?
But
that's
the
what we
survivors
feel.
who spoke,
God,
those stories stand on their own. And,
Oh, yes.
none of those kinds of ad hominem attacks you talked about could take those stories down.
No, but we get so tired of them because, if they're doing that to us and we have voices, what are they doing to those that don't?
Yeah.
And that's who I think of. And that's who I do this for.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather just be, doing my photography, making music, But this is, I wanted to leave a blueprint. I wanted to leave a roadmap. I wanted to help people get brave.
We talked about this a little bit earlier, this complicated question of when is one ready to come forward, which so many women and men confront every day. In the book, you tell a story about escaping one of your mother's abusive spouses and going back to your father and him saying, well, if you had a problem, you should have gone to school and written a letter and reported it.
And he told me I should have sent him a letter from my school's mailbox.
Now, there are people who will read that and say, well, he's got a point. You should report.
Those people are stupid.
We established that earlier. But
it's more just the tired thought. It's just like that it's so tired.
Well, but assess the underlying claim, because I know it's something that you've turned over. And I know that every woman who has a story to tell turns that over, and that the reasons they don't come forward are real and compelling.
The reasons they don't come forward is because there was never a way to, Ronan. Historically, they don't come forward and you're putting it on us. Please don't.
The culture needed to change, you're saying.
I had to get people smarter. 3 years ago, I set about going after the power structure. I was very polite. I told them I was coming. I was like, wake up, sleeping bear. Wake up, wake up. Because I set about 3 years ago, I looked at the state of the world. Oh my God, and it's gotten so much better since 3 years ago. And I thought,
and a lot of things collided
and
about 3 years ago.
I worked hard. 3 years ago, I followed all these reporters all over the world, like from Paducah, Kentucky to the Hindustan Times, right? And what I set about was, because people look at who's verified that's following them. I was following like stringers, not even the editor. I'd follow people, sports writers. That's why this is being covered in the sports section too, by the way, just so you know. I followed everybody so they could look at who's verified. Oh, what's this about? They never retweeted me or said anything like that because I'm scary and weird to them. Fine. But I trained them how I speak and possibly to reframe things by 10%. And I knew I was getting media, I was grooming them as they groom others. As predators groom others, I thought, well, what if we do grooming for something positive?
There was a chain of events, and a lot of those events began to emerge around the time frame you were talking about. The Cosby accusers came forward.
Yes.
My sister came forward with an allegation against a powerful man. After that, there was the Roger Ailes story and the Bill O'Reilly story, and on and on and on. Now, that climate was very different. We talked about the reaction the Cosby accusers got.
It wasn't time yet.
What changed?
Anger. The permission to have a voice and be like, it changed also, I think Trump was I think it was for liberal men finally being like, oh, this is what that is? Yes, that's what that is. Yep.
One of the most interesting...
And it became hard to lie about to themselves. It became so obvious, and it became so blatant. It became such obvious, a crime, that it helped reframe. And so 3 years ago, pre-Trump, but I knew, I could still see it. What changed You know, that's like the whole misnomer with the Time magazine, the silence breakers. Shut up. You just took your damn earplugs out. Or rather, I kicked them out of your head. You listened. I've always been talking. We have always been talking collectively. Women have been talking. People of color have been saying that I was 14 reading about articles of black men getting killed by police. And only recently are people societally, oh, black people get killed by police. Brr. Yeah. And they were doing it while you were like that. And it happens anyway, regardless of whether you know it's there or not. And with being willfully obtuse will no longer fly.
You mentioned that Time magazine cover, and you've been very outspoken in your criticism of the Time's Up movement and the kind of mainstream manifestation of this conversation and some of the women in it. I mean, when you look at a cover of Ashley Judd and Alyssa Milano and some of these women who, you know, were in that Time magazine spread.
I think it's owned by the Koch brothers, and I don't really care.
Say it one more time?
It's owned by the Koch brothers, Time magazine.
And you think that that's editorially linked to the...
No, not maybe. I don't know. There's a glaring omission, but I was very happy about it. I think there's something that's protecting me. That was not the question. The question is, how do I feel? Great.
Yeah.
Good. Fine. That's not it. The thing with Time's Up, it's a great slogan. The point of it is great. I agree. Time is up. You're boring. Stop. The problem I have is that it's 4 CIA agents behind it, okay? Who I have publicly accused of being human traffickers. Because they are. Because I know these people. I'm not making these pronouncements. I'm not from Enid, Oklahoma. I'm being like, you make money off of negotiating how long your right breast can be seen. You sent women to these rooms. The thing is that also people think these hotel rooms, it's like you're opening the door and there's a bed. This is like as big as this entire
But I want to break down this critique because there's two separate things here. One is, you know, the money itself and how it's going to be used. Do you think that...
Is there a dispersal person?
I don't know the answer to that. Do you think that it's being used in the right way, or do you...
It's not my business. Do what you want. But it's not helping, I don't know. I just sent one of Weinstein's victims $1,500 so she could buy her children's shoes. But guess what? That Time's Up fund is going to farm workers. That's fine. Farm workers need help. But how are those people at CIA going to find farm workers? Have they ever thought of that? Do they know a lot of them? Do they hang out, you know, in the middle of California?
Well, to be fair, I think if they have a legitimate philanthropic enterprise...
Congratulations,
I would like to clap for supporting farm workers facing abuse,
Fuck
too.
yes.
Hell yes.
And I signed a letter for that. But I didn't know signing a Time's Up letter.
But
I got tricked.
It is true that if they set up a legitimate philanthropic enterprise, that there could be a structure by which farm workers could bring claims and
so
this could be
could
helped.
you too. We could all set up things to help farm workers, as we should. CAA, please.
So that brings me to the other half of this critique, which is you, and by the way...
And the other agencies as well, they're not different.
Rose is not alone in this, right? No. You know, there are other women who spoke out to me who have similar misgivings about this. It sounds like you think that this is something of a smokescreen or cover for some of these guys on the board.
I don't think it sounds like it. I think I said what it was. I think it is. I don't think it sounds like. Don't forget, I live there. I am the curtain.
And what would you have them do differently? Should those guys not be doing even if it's a cover your ass move, should those guys not be starting a philanthropic movement?
No, they shouldn't. They're dirty people. They're bad people. They're bad humans. And they put this stuff in your brain because they orchestrate who's on screen, they orchestrate who's writing it, and they orchestrate who's directing it, they orchestrate who's producing it, and they orchestrate who's putting it in theaters, and they orchestrate what's going on your TV, your lives, your bedrooms. That's who's doing it, these people. And I know them. Okay, I could say one of them pushed me up against the wall and jammed his tongue down my throat. I could have put that in the book, but I didn't. I could also say another time one of them stuck his finger up my skirt in a photo booth and put his finger inside of me, but I didn't.
Why aren't you naming those names?
Because I'm about broader and bigger things. I'm about a construct. I don't fuck with low-level shit. I'm bored of it. I'm bored of people pulling on my ankles and trying to pull me down to earth when I'm trying to just make everybody rise up. Stop fighting. Stop. just be better. It's not that complicated. From what I see from my being raised in the wolves sort of situation, in an evening gown.
That's a metaphor.
Or real.
Is there anything you regret leaving out of Brave?
Interesting question.
I try.
Kid, you're cute.
Hey.
I like you. No. I really, it was such a fine, there'll be a book someday of adventures or this or that, or, fiction or something. But this book particularly, it was a high wire act. And it was, and I love language so much. And I love words, and at times, and I'm sure you felt like this, or anybody who's written, it felt like every word in the world was in my head and weighing me down, and I couldn't get it out. It's horrible writing a book. It's really not fun, especially when you're resurrecting ghosts. But it's not Debbie Downer. It really is, and I'm not trying to sell it. You can buy it or not. I highly recommend it. You might get something out of it. But the thing of it was just that I knew I had to get out the other side. I had no choice. And I had to bury these bodies, these ghosts that were everywhere around me. But the problem is now is that this monster, he won't stop. He won't leave me alone. And or any of us, just if you can't do something positive for the world, just leave us alone. Please. That's the thing that people don't get. It's like, I don't really want to be in the public eye. I very much enjoyed not being known. I would go home, and then the fake me would be in the papers having a strip-off with Christina Aguilera, as reported by the New York Post, even though I was 100,000 miles away.
But I want to just pause on that statement of leave us alone, and I want to be very careful about the distinction between what I have reported and what I haven't.
No, I don't mean that. I mean leave us alone malevolence. I mean leave us alone with you took a payout. Leave us alone with Ozzy. You went back. Leave us alone with, come on.
You mean with the narratives that
with
you
societal,
all confront?
Yeah, it's so like. It's
but
just like ramming your head against the wall.
But do you think that he, and again, I just want to be hyper precise because
Yeah.
look, I did report things that indicated that there were people coming after you, and that there was a well-funded machine designed to gaslight you. Mm-hmm. Now, and you, but
and everybody.
To be clear, since this fall, we're talking about territory that I have not published anything on. So I want to just be precise. You believe that Harvey Weinstein is, in an ongoing way, after you?
Yes.
In what way?
I'm boxing in the dark, aren't I?
What makes
Someone
you
was
think
just offered $100,000 to tell them what hotel room I was in. New York Post, I believe, who was paid by him, which Richard Johnson. I can't say they're the ones that did it, but that's who was told that.
And you believe this is emanating from him?
Who else cares? Seriously, really, who else is going to stalk me this long?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I can't comment on ongoing reporting, but
it's this person had a whole thing. The thing with predators is that they have to have illusions all around them of what they are. And this man, who was tied with God for being thanked at the Oscars, was a beast, is a beast, and his appetite was for a very specific type, but an endless supply of that type. And that type was something with delicate features. That type was something like Ozzy said. That type was when we weren't respected. It wouldn't happen to a Jennifer Lawrence. She would be, for whatever reason, there were always ones that were protected. And then there were the other ones that were thrown to the wolves. Do you remember that movie, LA Confidential?
Yeah.
You remember when the Kevin Spacey character comes in? I'm gay. Sorry, I can't help myself. That's my commentary on that. And in LA Confidential, there's a young, beautiful male actor, and he thinks he's going to have a tryst with someone, or he is. And Kevin Spacey, his character, trades this as like a PR thing. It's like, no, we have to, or Dan DeVito or somebody, like, we have to protect this more box office friendly star. You can't say that this guy's gay and report on that, but we're gonna throw this young one to the wolves. You can do a gay bust here, right? He's a new actor on the scene. He'll take the hit.
I have to, because we live in an outrage culture and everything gets scrutinized. You did the Kevin Spacey I'm gay thing with the hand motions. You've had a few.
Oh, sorry.
You've had a few scuffles with the LGBT community on comments you've made. I just want to give you the opportunity.
I'm not saying I'm gay. I'm mad at Kevin Spacey for saying he's gay when in fact he's apparently a predator. Don't conflate it.
That is, I think, a common critique in response to the way that
the way he did it was like trying to come out like it seemed like a jazz hands, like a stereotype of a what? It was horrible. I know that all of my gay friends were horrified, and rightly so, because my work, and I've done this for years. People don't know is that from age 13, I fought, I marched, I bled, I donated, I screamed, I cried, I bled and died gay rights. Okay? And then I saw it not being paid forward at all. And then I saw
What do you mean by that?
Well, it is the fastest growing civil rights movement in United States history, right? True. I think, because I got really disappointed by the heteronormative part. There's the queer community, and then there's the kind of more like heteronormative side, right? Not all, I'm not generalizing all, but let's say West Hollywood. When the scuffle that ensued, the first one, with the LGBTQ community, it sounded like I was talking about every gay person. I was speaking very specifically about this certain West Hollywood, California type.
You had made some critical comments about the community there.
I was mad. So what? Why do you get a pass for being a gay male that you're not misogynist? You're raised as a male, duh.
You make a comment in the book about the gay men who did your hair, the much discussed and hated hair, and sort of treated you like a Barbie.
And they did, and I didn't, and they were lovely, but they were very much part of a machine of like, when I was little, this was what I did to the doll's hair, and so I'm going to do that to you. I have an idea of what sexuality is, especially in America, and what sexy is. What was interesting was that they were sent, and it's almost always for a reason, like a lot of gay male hairdressers, stylists, it just is what it is. Today, the sky was gray. They're paid to turn straight men on. So it's a very strange dynamic in that case. But my thing is, I don't think anybody who was born into having a brass ring before their feet step on earth, if they've had, a sonogram and you can see that it's male, because you're gay doesn't mean you didn't grow up in a society.
So you think women, gay men, they are all part of the machine that perpetuates the misogyny
And women are too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
All of us.
You are, Rose, still staring down drug charges in Virginia. I spoke to you in the fall, the day that you were going to turn yourself in. You talked about how hard that was. What was that like?
It was awesome. It's hard. Certain people that were after me made donations to certain people, and then a certain thing happened to me.
You're referring to...
I'm not going to talk about that. I don't want to, please, the Virginia. That's
sure.
Private. That's not for it. But it is everything messed up that's happened to me. Like the book agent that came into my life, they introduced me to all the spies that was actually working with Harvey Weinstein in the background and Jay-Z on the Trayvon Martin film, okay? That was on a plane. Everywhere they've been able to find me.
This is Lacey Lynch.
When I'm on a plane, and Jan Miller of Dupre Miller, who hooked me up with that attorney who turned out to be friends with Boyce, and it's the whole thing. It's wild.
And it's worth noting that, I talked to Lacey Lynch and she denied anything of the kind.
Fine. But they were the only people with the manuscript. And every time I've been on a plane, which is where the drugs apparently existed, every time, where do you have to use your own name on a plane? Where do they find everybody?
So for people who haven't been following this story,
It's a
and
bit of a
Rose, I have
saga.
to say, was very open about this going back to a year ago. There was a wallet discovered when you went to the Women's March. At the airport, the wallet was recovered. There was cocaine in it. And
Residue, apparently. But I didn't even know what it was for months, what they were after. I didn't actually know if it was real. I had to hire a private investigator to find out if these police were even real, if this warrant was real, because that's the funhouse world.
So to be clear, you are saying you did not have those drugs in your possession?
To be clear, I'm from California, and I own I invest in a marijuana company.
Your marijuana card was in the wallet, in fact.
Fact, so was my Screen Actors Guild card. And and I went to the bathroom on that plane, and I had left my backpack on the seat. Didn't think anything of it. I kind of had a weird feeling. I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I couldn't connect why. And as I say in Citizen Rose, I had horrible feelings. Don't get on that plane, don't get on that plane. But I was like, why? I have to be a good feminist to go to the Women's March. And I'm like, don't get on that plane. And I had such bad vibes about it. And I was right. And when I got to baggage claim, I was like, oh my God, my wallet's in here. And I started shaking. And I go, this is it. This is the in. I don't know what it is, but this is the in they need. I don't know what this is. I didn't know what was happening. The wallet, which was a men's card, tiny. So I was like, I don't know what they're saying is in this wallet. What could fit in that wallet? It's for 3 credit cards and a Screen Actors Guild card. That came in handy. It's horrible. It's 14 counties in Virginia declined to prosecute it because they were like, there's so many problems. How about the fact that after they handcuffed me, the airport police officer, he refused to take the handcuffs off me when the magistrate, the judge, said you could. But when she turned around, he took them off so I could sign an autograph for him. I asked him his name, Steve. Hi, Steve. I'll remember you, Steve. Steve, we're gonna meet again.
But you understand there are obviously people who will say, sure, she didn't have the drugs, and be skeptical. What's your response to them?
Don't try me.
I've gotten that look a lot from Rose.
Yes. What's the response to that? I don't know. I would like to talk to them about their life and have some questions and responses for them. I don't know. I don't know I'm not here to defend myself to people. I don't owe people an explanation for my life. It's not their business. It's mine.
Finally, to clear the air on another thing that you may or may not think you need to explain further, but you've gotten a lot of press in recent days for, and in recent months, a succession of criticism of some of the other women who have purported to be a part of this movement. Meryl Streep initially, now more recently you said of Alyssa Milano, your former co-star. I don't like her, she's a lie.
So?
Well, maybe...
Is that not my prerogative?
It is completely your prerogative. I'm just asking here and now,
I
do you
also
regret
don't like
those
turnips.
statements?
No.
You are absolutely entitled not to like Alyssa Milano. I just wondered if there's anything you
I
wanna
should
add.
be shiny and nice, so People Magazine, who works with Citric PR and Sunshine PR, who does PR for The Monster, and Georgina Chapman, and I believe her, and she's married to a CA agent. Okay? No.
All right,
No.
not backing down. We have it on
Why
the
would
record.
I?
want to get to some of these questions. You guys have all stayed here a long time.
It's not hate, it's not anger, it's sadness. Anger, what I want to give women, and especially women, permission to be and have anger because it's justified, and that anger covers pain, okay? We know that, right? So why, if you're allowed, for at least a week or so in America, after someone dies close to you, everyone expects you to go through those stages of grief, right? Anger, pain, and all that stuff. Why would you not go through that when part of you's been killed? And why would you not, if you see your former co-star, who used to have to say, I love you to, posing arm in arm, which you know is for a press photo op to clean up an image of someone I know they didn't know before.
You mean because of her friendship with Georgina?
That made me vomit. It actually, when I write these things, what people think is that I'm sitting here like, no, I'm hunched over crying.
Here's my question. Should that have been a private message to her?
I don't know. Should she have private messaged her support to me ever?
I take it that's a rhetorical question, and the answer is no.
Correct. But happily, go for the press, by all means.
So I want to get to a few of these questions. They're good questions. This is an issue we've touched on, but I think this crystallizes a concern that's prominent in the conversation now. While it is a great thing to bring focus to this issue and tell your story, don't you feel all the men are owed due process before being held guilty by the court of public opinion?
I don't know. Do you think all women should be afforded due process? We have the legal system's rigged in your favor. Chill out, okay? That's what I would say. You're gonna be okay, big boys. Pull up your panties. It's not about it. That's not what's going on. It's too micro. It reduces the argument. I think there's a lot of people in jail for a lot of things they didn't do. I highly doubt it's so hard to get a rape conviction. Oh my God, is it hard, okay? That fear is so, it's kind of like the white guy in Oklahoma who's afraid of terrorists, right? And that Obama's still coming for his guns.
I would also say, you know, the distinction between careful investigative reporting and things that are more fired from the hip becomes apparent in the context of that question. What advice do you have?
Wait, you mean I'm firing from the hip? And
No.
you're the careful investigative reporter?
Well, no,
What?
you
No,
worked
just
with
kidding.
careful investigative reporters.
I did. I really did, because
I hope you feel good about that decision.
You know, yes, it had to happen this way. It all had to happen this way, Ronan. And I don't want any men to be accused of anything they don't do. But I also know that for every Me Too, there's an I did it. So who is that? Who will take responsibility? Because I saw a thing where they were interviewing like woman after woman after woman on the street saying, do you know any Me Too? And they're all like, yeah, every single woman was like me, every single woman, me. And then they interviewed 100 guys walking by. Nope, I don't know anybody's done it. Nope, not me, nope, never seen it, none of my friends. I'm like, who are these magical raping fairies that come from? Where do they come from? And I would say, men, it doesn't matter whether I like you or not. I might love you because I love you as humans, and that's what I want us to be. The book, everything, Rose Army is about raising consciousness. My goal is 10%. Just rewire it. Just a chiropractic adjustment for the mind.
We were living in a reality that was not the reality that women who had dealt with this issue were living in. The cultural conversation did not reflect what was actually happening. We needed a wake-up call.
That's called gaslighting, I don't know, since about the dawn of time.
And I don't, I don't mean to say, when I say firing from the hip, I don't mean women coming
Fire
forward.
and fury?
Well, that's a longer and separate evening. But when I say firing from the hip, I'm describing sloppy reporting rather than women coming forward.
There's so much sloppy reporting.
I think when women come forward individually and they do a blog post or a social media post and tell their story, that's great. The question is, it's then incumbent on reporters to do right by that. And the best way to do justice, I think, to any person coming forward with a difficult story is to interrogate it as thoroughly as possible and, lend credence
Of course.
where it's due.
Of course.
We have another question, Rose.
What's the question?
What advice do you have for women who want to tell their story?
And men.
And men, absolutely.
What advice do I have? Oh, gosh. You have to be stronger than you can ever imagine. And I'm so sorry that you have to be, because it's not fair. It's not fair you were hurt. What advice do I have? A lot of times, I've actually kind of coached is the right word, but I've kind of shepherded a lot of young men coming out to their parents. I do a lot of work through Twitter and I find people that, I don't know, something that they say strikes a chord, so I'll follow them back. There are people all over the world that I talk to, young men and women, that have been hurt, or that they were coming out of the closet, and one of the things that I would say to them, they were like, I want to tell my family, they're not going to understand, they're not going to like it. Okay, so you've been rolling this around in your head for a while. they've either not known at all or their head's in the sand, so they're going to react kind of the same way, maybe. One thing is there's a grace period for people that, you have to understand that your voice matters. And you have to understand that, yes, people will react badly. They will shame you. They will lie about you. They will do everything they can, unless you're one of the lucky ones, and I really hope you are. I hope you have a soft place to land. Because it's just a bus ride we shouldn't have gone on. We were already on a bus. My bus was better, right? And it's a bummer, but it's important. I get, and I'm sure you do, I get so many messages of, it's a lot. I don't know what to do. I got a message right before I came on here that a woman is being raped every day by her husband. I don't know what to do. I have to figure it out. I have to find resources. I have to refer to things, but it's so hard.
And thankfully there are, as flawed as our law enforcement system is, there are cases where absolutely crimes should be reported to the authorities.
Absolutely.
And that can help.
But you have to understand the deck is so stacked against women and men or children, even knowing a crime has been committed, unless it's so glaringly obvious. And that becomes hard. What I can say is it's a journey. That journey will leave you changed. Like Asia Argento said in Citizen Rose, it made her hard.
She told me
But
I was a little lamb and now I have turned into a wolf.
She is, but I maintain that you can be the wolf protecting the lamb.
Someone says, 1, thank you, Rose. 2, how do we make men a part of the solution moving forward?
Thank you for that, and thank you for that question. Yeah, that's the whole point, is moving forward, right? I have a problem with, I didn't like when I came to America and they told me I was a girl. I didn't know what that was. What? I didn't like when I was told I had to wear pink because I was X. I didn't like when I was told that because I was this is who I'm supposed to be attracted to. So I started thinking about, what if we start thinking about the order of things, right? It's human, then it's, I guess, gender, then it's a racial construct. It goes down. But so instead of the man-woman, like Men Are From Mars, whatever that stupid stuff is, everyone's grinding at it, right? Trying to figure it out. And I've noticed the English language is so, again, the lack of nuance in the English language is quite startling, and yet this is the universal language we're supposed to communicate to, right? But girls and boys, we learn, because we're separated, a different language. One of the things I think we can do, that would be really quite easy, is to step back. I think men need to become curious about women in different ways than maybe they've ever thought about. In ways of that they can consider them. And I noticed this when I shaved my head. The side effect was all of a sudden, I didn't look like what I was supposed to look like, and people were listening to me. I think, glitch the system. Stop going at it from the man-woman thing. If we approach it as, when I take photographs of people, I've been told, wow, I don't look like the me that I always look like in photos, but it's me. And I feel my gift has always been, I've been able to see the person behind the person that they have out there. And I see that with men. I see greatness in men. I see so much.
I want to ask
this
question.
But I feel bad that they get hurt in this society, and by age 2, they've been co-opted into what a man is and when they're allowed to feel. And it's not even necessarily your fault.
I want to get to this one before we wrap, because this may be a woman who needs advice.
Okay.
How do you suggest women dealing with sexual harassment in the workplace handle this in a professional manner?
Professional manner.
Is there a way to avoid it, this person adds?
Avoid having to deal with it? Or avoid...
It's an interesting way to phrase the question, right?
Avoid...
Like it's incumbent on this individual to stop it?
This is where the complicity machine comes in, okay? Because I'm going to guarantee other people at that office are aware. It's I'm sure we've all worked at those places where God, if that person was not here, the vibe would be so much better. All right, knock them out. Go around the system is my thing. The system didn't work. The system didn't work for me, and it doesn't seem to work for an awful lot of people. And the system is not the laws. The system is ingrained thought, and it's the fact that there's bars all around us that aren't even there. So if you submit that you must be creative, there are creative ways around this. You have to think, you have to plan. And sometimes it takes 20 years. Sometimes you have to fight really hard, and sometimes you play a lot of chess. I like what you said. What was that?
Three-dimensional chess.
Three-dimensional chess. But
What kind of punishment do you think is appropriate for sexual predators like Weinstein, says this individual?
See, that's the thing. I just want him to fall off the planet. It's the others. It's the machine around him. It's Fabrizio Lombardi who took Asia Argento to that room and told her there was a party, and that party was just a rapist. That's what's up. My problem, my thing, those people, what does it look like? I don't know, because I don't know from justice. I don't know. I can hope. I have never. I hate that handcuffs have been on me and not him. It pains me. And when they slapped those handcuffs on me, they were cold and heavy. I'd had a plan in my mugshot of looking tough. I was not in my body. When they did that, I did what I did when I was raped. I floated up above. And that photo was like,
It's a hard photo to look at.
I'm not there. I'm literally not there. And I knew that was probably the expression in my eyes when it happened to me. You know? And for that, there must be some kind of justice, mustn't there? Thank you.
Last question. And it's a forward-looking one.
Okay, yay.
I hope that means optimistic, although it occurs to me not necessarily. We all know the newsworthy cycle of this story will now really end. Do you think the reality of this issue will actually change? What comes next, Rose?
Well, being that I'm a soothsayer, I do actually own a crystal ball, believe it or not. It's quite beautiful. What comes next? You know, this is unfolding in real time. We've never been here. There's no road. So I very often feel like I'm just out there with a machete hacking through a jungle that's like, I'm like, come on. And, you know, it's, what it is that you just have to consider that women have value and that we're actually telling the truth, and that just because we're women doesn't discount us from anything, right? At all. I think what happens is that we start recognizing our worth, and that men start seeing their humanity, and start seeing, you know, and just look at your behavior. Man, you know when you were trying to get that candy from your mom and that money to go to 7-Eleven, right? You were like working it. So you know if you're doing something like that. I had a French journalist today, over and over, like, what? We can't flirt anymore? We can't. I'm like, oh, stop being so. How do I say basic in French? Basic? Jesus. Like, really? Like, I feel like I'm not. I think it's really just incumbent upon us to study it a little bit differently and just go up above it and look at the system. Look at it, see who it's benefiting, and if it's not you, change it. If it's not your soul, work at it. If it's not your mind, get free, because you can literally change everything in your mind. Nothing has to even change in your outside life. Things will, but by gaining the ability to speak for yourself, knowing that no matter what, if no one believes you, your truth is still yours and they can never take that away. I think we're in a really beautiful place. It's hard. It's not fun. It triggers a lot of things. But we're adults, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, this is The New York Times, my favorite part of the review. It was a good review. My publicist said it was very sellable. And I thought the lady missed the point. At the end, she said, this is a great book for teenage girls.
That's a dark read.
I think it's quite beautiful.
It's not relentlessly dark, but I'm trying to think. Early in your teens.
Not my fault.
No.
I didn't do it. That was life.
You didn't choose that.
I did not choose this. But the thing is, you know, sometimes things are, I think I know, I wrote in there, like, sometimes you're earmarked for weird from birth. I think I'm one of those. Near as I can figure, that's what happened to me. There's my sister, when I went to get arrested, who grew up in Canada, she's so gentle, Viola. She's so lovely. And I look at her and I'm like, Canada. And she's so lovely, not saying there are not problems, there are rapes, that's not what I mean, but someone asked her, like, where does Rose get that from? She literally just went, I don't know.
Well,
and
all
I don't know
say
either. I
is,
just know there's no other choice.
having gotten to know you through the reporting over the past year, I'm grateful that you have that ferocity. I think there's certainly no denying your contribution to the reporting, but more than that, there's very little denying your contribution to the conversation and how historic what you've done has been.
I just want people to have a conversation.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank you, Ronan. And congratulations on
National Magazine Award.
the National Magazine Award, which is...
It's a nomination, and I'm very
extremely
proud of
prestigious.
the New Yorker team and the women who spoke. And any recognition the reporting gets is down to women like Rose and any one of you in the audience who has come out of the shadows to tell your story. Thank you.
Thank
you all for
you.
coming.